Dear students, good evening. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 3rd December 2020. The first article for discussion, Hard Bargains and the Art of Policy Making. The art of policy making is always filled with pulls and pressures. How to solve these pulls and pressures? This is through deliberations, discussions and consultations. So my take home point is this. Discussions, deliberations, consultations and stakeholder involvement are critical for the acceptance of any reform. We saw that in the case of GST reform. On the other side today, if we observe the farm bills, this particular exercise was not done. We have many institutional structures in the form of parliament, assemblies and to that extent standing committees, select committees in the parliament to make possible these deliberations and consultations. Lack of effective use or high-handedness in the passage of the bills ultimately leads to this kind of protests. It need to be understood that democracy plays well when the stakeholders are involved and government takes responsibility for its actions. If you take GST, the state finance ministers are being made as empowered group of ministers to bring in every detail. Today the success of GST can be attributed to this kind of reconciliation of the government with opposition political parties and working in a cooperative framework. This cooperative mindset has to come up in the government. That is what is the essence of this article. The next is behind China's wolf warrior diplomacy. Today, after Mao, Xi Jinping want to establish himself as the leader of the nation. It means that he is a leader equated with Mao today in China. And he is building nationalism so that China can remain assertive. How this nationalism is being built, remember carefully. The nationalism is not for the nation state of China. The nation state of China is equivalent to Communist Party over there. So, loyalty to the China, it means loyalty to Communist Party too. So, indoctrination, patriotic education campaign, etc. is to cultivate red DNA in the students. Even the intellectuals are being indoctrinated. Patriotic striving spirit, this has been brought in to indoctrinate the intellectuals. Along with that, the history is being changed to create a sense of victimization and loss for China. And it is that century where it has to be taken back. It means he is developing a personality cult which is meant or which is believed in such a way that he is meant to change the course of destiny of China. So, creation of a China dream and overcoming the century of humiliation, these are the doctrination principles which are being brought in over here. So, you have to understand the China's assertiveness and also tensions with India on border, Taiwan, everything from this perspective of building a personality cult and party dominance and nationalistic dominance. Next is caste count. When India took the caste census, it was in 1931 when all the castes living in the country were enumerated. After that, SC/ST count is taken up, but not the caste count. In 2011, socio-economic caste census were taken up, but these are not revealed for two reasons. One, they are sensitive, and the second thing is the data is said to be unreliable. In this context, Tamil Nadu government has appointed a commission to look into the caste census. The reason is a community by name Vanniyars. These wanted 20% exclusive reservations for them. And PMK, a political party whose vote bank is that community, is supporting this particular thing. And second is, 69% of reservations are provided in Tamil Nadu. In this context, it has to provide for proper census data to support this 69% of reservations in Supreme Court. But however, backwardness also has to be proved to provide for the reservations. It has to be either social or educational backwardness. Proving this social educational backwardness for every community is not an easy task. Now, remember the point. Social justice in India has become equated with caste reservations. We need to overcome that. A society progress towards the ultimate goal of a casteless society. And caste identity, getting it consolidated for few welfaristic benefits or developmental goals is regressive. Next is questionable data, little room for exuberance. You know that the Q2 results, we have 7.5% loss in GDP. Previously, it was close to 24%. To be precise, it is 23.9%. How come so much of recovery within a quarter? So, first thing is data might be faulty. You know, for the quarter results, we take only formal sets of data, not the informal sets of data. And the second is we need to have a systematic approach of comparison between various data sets. In this case, GDP set and index of industrial production, they do not come together. And the third thing is, on external front, government boasts that it is doing very well. The balance of payments are increasing, forex is increasing. It clearly shows two trends. India is not importing enough for the reason that the economy is not prospering. And the second thing is, the rise in forex is majorly due to short-term flows of capital receipts, especially investment in share markets, not the foreign direct investment flows. And on the other hand, choppy tidings. This article is about the existing status of economy. Yesterday, if you saw, the indirect taxes, that is GST collections, have improved close to 1 lakh crores. It is subsequently in 2 months. In these circumstances, that is a good sign of economic recovery. It can be due to festivals or it can be due to pent-up demand. Whatever it may be, the economic recovery is clear. On the other side, purchase managers index, if you observe, for the November month, it is not very encouraging. It means the challenges still remain for the economy. So that's why what the government has to focus, it has to focus on creation of jobs. The sectors which are creating the jobs, especially MSMEs, and also labor intensive sectors like textiles, etc., construction textiles, these need to be given greater impetus. If you take the last fiscal stimulus, government has recognized this and it ensured greater stimulus to the employment generation sectors. Next is a looming health crisis. Here we need to understand something called antimicrobial resistance. Whenever you become sick, bacterial infection comes to you, you take antibiotics. When you overuse them or when you do not complete the course which has been offered to you, automatically the outcome is antimicrobial resistance. It means the same antibiotic will not work against the same organism in the next course. In this case, overuse of antibiotics, and in India antibiotics are available as the over-counter drugs. Added to that, pharmaceutical companies and non-metabolized part of the drug is going into the sewerage, and water pollution through this sewerage and animals consuming this water, all these are increasing. Water pollution is also increasing antimicrobial resistance. And once antimicrobial resistance increases, the cost of human life due to this is going to be heavy. Today it is believed that close to 7 lakh people die in a year because of antimicrobial resistance, and also young children, close to 50,000 children die because of sepsis developing from these bacteria and antimicrobial resistance. Next is, India will not accept less than bottom line in talks with China. Here the External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, he clearly states that talks with China are expected to be prolonged. He gives an analogy, that is sum the wrong chew. Now, when standoff was there in this area in 1986, the talks continued for 9 years. So he gives this analogy saying that there is no solution in the short term with regard to existing standoff. Obviously, it is going to cost India heavily on military front. So it leads to excessive militarization of line of actual control. We have to wait and see. And the next is, on one side standoff is continuing and the other side trade is going on. So China imports Indian rice. For the first time in a decade it did that. The reasons are two. One is Indian rice is costly and India is the largest producer. So second is, the traditional importers, that is traditional exporters, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, all these countries are showing low production this year, and China is witnessing a crisis of food products. In this context, India has become its source of import. Next, there has never been a women CJI. In higher judiciary, the women representation is very weak. In the case of Supreme Court of India, there is no women CJI till now. And the second thing is, only 2 women judges are there in the Supreme Court out of the sanction strength of 34. In the case of High Court, only 78 women judges are there on the sanction strength of 1113. And then install cameras at NIA, CBI offices, Supreme Court. Interrogation is where human rights violation happens in India. And many a times, the people who gives evidence to the police and at the later date they reverse their statements. In this context, installation of the CCTV cameras in the interrogation centers of NIA, CBI, Enforcement Directorate is suggested by the Supreme Court, and it clearly stated that it has to happen in a time-bound manner. Next, Biden sets new demands for return to Iran nuclear deal. It was expected that once Biden comes to power, Iran nuclear deal will take a shape. But however, Biden has clearly stated that Iran might need to agree for new sets of demands from USA to come back to the deal. There are two types of demands US is generally making over here. One is fissile material production has to be further delayed, and second, proxies in the regions have to be controlled. You know, Iran is known for Shia faction support. In Syria, it supports Assad. In the case of Yemen, it supports the rebels. And in Lebanon, Hezbollah. And in Palestine, Hamas. In this context, these proxy groups have to be handled, controlled. That is the demand. Remember, if any country in the Middle East it becomes nuclear power, it leads to nuclear arms race in the region, and that is going to bring in global instability. That is the last thing wanted on this earth. Next is global alert on vaccine frauds. Interpol has raised concern on vaccine frauds. It can be with regard to wrong vaccine sale on the websites, or disruption of supply chains, or for that matter, production of fake vaccines itself. In this case, the countries need to take necessary caution. That is what Interpol has suggested to the nations. This is Dr. Rambabu signing off for Law Excellence IAS. Thank you very much. Have a great day.